5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Please do not change channel.
From Krypton Radio, brought to you by Famous Faces and Funnies and Off the Chain with Yvonne Mason, it's the Hangin With Web Show Radio Hour, the Internet's premier pop culture talk radio show. You're tuned in, you're logged on, and now your hosts, GW Pomichter and Christian Basel. Who are you hanging with?
Hello, Krypton Radio!
No.
A great week to be on the air. Guys, you're listening to the Hangin With Web Show Radio Hour. I'm GW Pomichter.
And I'm Christian Basel, and we're excited about this announcement, right?
Oh, we're always excited here. Every week, something new, something better, further, faster. We are the little web show that could. Woohoo! That's what we are. And every week we find out we could do something new and exciting and great.
Yes.
So tonight we're going to have a great show. We'll let everybody out there know. Tonight we're talking science to science fiction and back again. And just the pipeline of between inspiration and the integration of science fiction science into our world and then back again, where that inspires us to do more, greater, better science fiction.
That's really cool.
It is. And we got a great guest to talk about that, too. Before we do that, there's some quick housekeeping announcement out there on Krypton Radio. As Christian alluded to, the Hangin With Web Show is growing strong. We are growing more and more every day. Sage had some numbers that she shared with me just recently. The website, we're reaching 500,000 people.
I love that.
Like every month.
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that not crazy? There's 500,000 people out there that care about these artists and these creators.
And you took down those provocative pictures of me on that website, right? I mean,
well, I left the shirtless.
Or is that why we have the million?
I left the shirtless one because that's drawing them in, baby. That's drawing them in. So we did that. We just toppled 500,000 YouTube views.
Yes, we did.
On the show. I mean, we didn't just topple it. We crumbled it with like 20,000 extra just for fun. Boom, crumbled. Those are all individual artists, authors, filmmakers, creators of all kinds from our community out there reaching an audience.
I love that.
That's fantastic. We just closed the deal. We are now heard in syndication now. The Radio Hour show is now heard on iHeartRadio.
Yay!
There you go, look at that. So an entirely new sci-fi pop culture audience is coming right to our doorstep. I mean, this is out there on Krypton Radio. It's an amazing time to be a web creator right now, and it is an amazing time to be Christian and Garrett and Sage and Dina and Allie and Harry, because everything's coming up well.
Trust me, he's more humble. He really is more humble than that.
I can't be humble right now. My ego is stoked. I am so excited about all the great things that just keep happening.
Well, I think, you know what's funny is every time I hear, I'm listening on the radio, going to work or driving around, and I hear something, yeah, we're part of the iHeartRadio. We're a network part of the iHeartRadio. Taylor Swift is on iHeartRadio, and I'm thinking, yeah, we are too.
Yeah, it is. It's a great time. It's a great, growth. Christian, did you see, I tried to send this over to you, but we've been busy, you and I have been real busy trying to connect here.
Yeah.
We just hit, last week, the Hangin With Web Show video interviews. We hit #1 in video podcasts.
Oh, you're kidding.
On iTunes.
On iTunes.
Oh!
We were #1. You know what the other 9 were? TED Talks. In the top 10. So
they were what?
TED Talks. The most popular things on iTunes are the technology talks. And we were #1. They were 2 through 9. So
okay.
that works for me.
Wow.
That works for me. That's amazing. And then we're only on week 6, guys, of the Radio Hour?
Yeah.
Week 6 of the Radio Hour last week, we hit #5 on the iTunes podcast, top podcast for audio podcast.
Yes, we did.
Now, I'm going to go to that. We can't do this without you folks, and we thank you for listening and subscribing and watching the YouTube page and going to our Facebook page and just listening to everything that we have. This is phenomenal for us, and we can't, like, when you hear a show that says we can't do this without you. Seriously, we couldn't and we wouldn't be able to do this without you.
No,
so thank you to everybody.
Radio, without the internet and the web audience that we've gathered together. We would just be a bunch of people like Christian sitting around in his underwear talking into a mic. That's
Garrett. Have you seen Garrett as an underwear?
But yeah.
I just want to tell you that I don't sit in my underwear.
Oh. Well, if it makes you feel better. Wait. If it makes you feel better.
Use their imagination to get even more listeners.
If it makes you feel better, I don't sit in your underwear either, so we're fair there. We're even.
Yeah, so it's an amazing week to be us. We've got an amazing guest coming on, but you know what? We're going to do the news again, and we've been loving this segment. Seiji, our artistic relations coordinator here on the show regularly, has been doing the news for us. So, Christian, what do you say we give her a chance to do some news? What do you think?
I got you. We need to come up with some kind of classy intro for Sage.
Yeah, we do. And the audience loves it. Sage, what's in the news? Let's talk about the news. What's in the news? What do you got?
Let's talk about the news. Well, I know. In next week's news now, I know I get a classy new opening. The brand new
That's
thing,
news, by the way. Coming soon.
It's news for me, yes.
That's right.
And now Sage with the news.
We'll work on that. Yeah.
We'll work on it.
We'll call you. No.
No, you won't.
Well, we all know this Friday is Friday the 13th.
It is. It is indeed.
Yes. I mentioned this before, but I will mention this again. Lost in Space. Danger Will Robinson is coming to Netflix. They're going to drop 10 episodes this Friday.
I love Netflix. Netflix is awesome because they don't just give you an episode and make you wait around. They give you 10. It's bingeable.
It is.
I love that.
I'm going to sit there and I'm going to watch all of it. It stars...
So now, if the gods of sci-fi will only listen to our prayers, don't let it suck.
It won't. Molly Parker is starring as Maureen Robinson, and she is... They're giving her like a powerhouse role. She's the matriarch of the family, rocket scientist.
I like that.
Rocket scientist, lost in space. I just want to point that out.
Yeah. Well, yes. That's the whole topic of the show tonight.
What?
The whole topic of the show tonight is science to science fiction and back again. So I think we're going to talk about that a little. We're going to talk about how these rocket scientists always end up lost.
Right.
So, okay, what do you got? So, what else?
You know, the Infinity Wars dropped a couple of new clips out there to tease us some more.
Everybody knows
Yes, for their April 27th premiere, which is coming up.
Yes.
Yes, even children know that.
More Avengers, because,
Thanos, I could snap my fingers and you would all cease to exist.
Which would be a better way to win a fight than getting your head kicked in like 3 or 4 times in a row?
Why
in
not?
theory.
Wait a minute, why not have Doctor Strange see all the different things that could happen in his time, and then he'll know, and he'll say, which one do we succeed in? How many times do we have to do this?
And the movie would last 7 minutes. We want 3 hours, not 7 minutes.
No, I don't. I need a bathroom break.
Yeah.
I'm too old to sit down for the 3 hours.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, what else you got? What else?
We're going to see Black Panther, speaking of Infinity Wars, but it surpassed Titanic in the box office records, because Titanic held that box office record for the longest time.
Yes, it did.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
Black Panther
smashed that.
Yes.
Beautiful. Geek culture coming alive. We're busting records everywhere.
Yes.
Nice.
And they're going to take on Avatar, right?
Avatar, that'd be next in line. Avatar be the overall in-theater grossing.
I got a side question. Are you guys even excited that there is a 2 and 3 coming out here?
I am not excited. I don't think it's...
I didn't even see the original.
Brilliant filmmaking is the best thing I can say about the original Avatar. It is brilliant filmmaking. It is a use of CGI in a way that had never, ever come even close before. And it was good storytelling. So it had a little bit of everything. It is the odd man out in sci-fi films, however. It is a little bit of an odd story.
Well,
but
it's not only that, but...
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
It's not only that, but how many conventions have you gone to and seen an Avatar cosplayer, or an Avatar prop, or an Avatar thing? It just seemed like after the Avatar everything, it's kind of skewered downhill, and Disney kind of took a little longer to get Avatar Land out over by Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
I wonder if the steam train just lost all of its momentum.
I think that's it. I think when
when
you're looking at sci-fi stories, and Avatar initially, it was a great standalone story. It was a great story. It was groundbreaking with effects and CGI. It was amazing storytelling, but like a lot of stories, it was a one-off at the time. And because of that, it doesn't have this. When you're putting out movies in a franchise frantically, 2 a year, 3 a year, you're going to own the headlines. You're going to own what's going on. And Avatar was a one-off, and it just went away. Now there is a series coming. We have a 2 coming soon, a 3 on the books. So the question, I think, is can you reignite that fire? Because it was big. It was big when it was there.
I thought you said, "Can you feel the love tonight?" I thought you were going to slide into that.
Well, I think that's exactly why Disney's Avatar, like Christian had pointed out in Animal Kingdom, I think that will help to boost the popularity of the series.
It may. I think the question is when you catch lightning in a bottle, can you catch it twice? And if you catch it twice, can you keep it ignited long enough? Because now franchises, Star Wars, the Star Wars franchise is set to have a new movie every year. Mm-hmm. Infinitum. When you're competing with that, can your one movie or one trilogy, or can that catch fire and really spread? And I don't know the answer. I truly asked the question because I don't know the answer. A long time ago, individual movies would stand out, not just for the year, but there are movies. There are movies that just stand the test of time. They are what they are forever. Casablanca is what it is. One movie, one time, and it is what it is. Avatar obviously is not. It's already faded with the one movie. But in this culture that we've created today, can a series of 3 stand out when you're talking about 20 Avengers movies or 20 Star Wars movies or a recurring set? It's an interesting question. I think we're going to find out the answer because they're bringing them out. So, but it is. I can't say excited. I am looking forward to it. I get excited about the big event movies, though. I do. I'm excited for Infinity War. That I'm excited for because I'm a people watcher. I want to watch people come into that theater in their Doctor Strange capes and get excited and rip roaring cheer, and cry because we know this is going to be the pathetic, sad Avengers movie.
Oh,
it is. The math says you have to risk something, and you have to show us the risk, which means you have to kill one of our guys right away.
Well, at least it won't be like Game of Thrones, where we know in the finale almost everybody's going to die.
Yeah. Well, they haven't yet. They have not let George Martin write for Marvel yet.
Thank goodness.
We could have the red wedding during Marvel.
That's right. If Marvel one day, if we see a headline that says Marvel hires Dan and Dave from HBO and Stephen Moffat, that's it. They're all dead. There's no sense in going to the film. They all die.
Oh my God! They killed Kenny.
That's right. They killed Kenny. and Kenny over and over again. They're just going to keep doing it. So what else do you have? What else you got?
Well, you were talking about Star Wars. The new trailer for Solo.
Yes.
Actually just dropped on Sunday night.
Yes. I was not looking forward to this until this most recent teaser.
That's exactly why they did it. Everybody was really nervous, and now fans feel better. It opens May 25th in the theaters. Chewie looks good. Han gets to meet Lando. We get to see that. He does say, I've got a good feeling about this, so he is incredibly green yet.
Yeah, he's
Poor
green.
Han Solo has no idea what's coming.
That's right. The Star Wars famous line, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yes.
And he delivers the antithesis. So that
For this day and age.
Yeah, he says he's got a good feeling about this.
No, I was about to say, for this day and age, I'm surprised they didn't haul out Harrison Ford and just CGI him for his younger self with the deep.
I think that's one of the reasons that people were a little nervous about this movie was because it's Harrison Ford is one of a handful of true movie stars in today's day and age, and Han Solo is a part of what transformed him into that. It is an iconic role. I think people were just nervous about seeing a non-Harrison Ford Han Solo.
Well, it's not only that, but we've now proven, thanks to Rogue One, we can bring back Princess Leia and the Admiral. I can't think of his name, but Peter Cushing's character. Bring them back, and we have somebody else do it. I'm surprised that wasn't a direction that they didn't take with the Solo movie.
Yeah, well, it would have taken. Obviously, the expenditure in that would have been huge because he's the main character, so he's going to eat scenery. He's going to eat the scenes. And so CGI of that magnitude would have been It would have been right along Avatar's line. It would have been a main character with the CGI the whole time. And so yeah, but it is. That was kind of scary. But I saw this last teaser, and if nothing else, 2 words for our Sci-Fi Geekdom out on Krypton Radio. 2 words for Amelia Clark.
Woohoo!
That's all I'm going to say. How is in the house.
That's right.
So,
super badass.
Super badass, and showing Han the ropes, as it were. So that's a lot of fun.
I'm just going to say this. The movie that's going to pull me out of the house this year is starting the whole movie superhero trend is Deadpool, which I think is coming out next month, right? It's coming out in May?
Yeah.
May 18th.
Yep,
May
that's
18th,
the movie that's going to pull me out of the house, and I'm going to probably see it.
That has had a great effect on I think it is one of the contributing factors mainstreaming pop culture right now, because Deadpool is an everyman's anti-hero that everybody gets, man. He's funny. We'd want to hang out with Deadpool. We'd want to have a beer with him.
Not only that, but I think they did a great marketing job with the original first Deadpool movie, and the second one where they're doing now, they're going to give out this pink Deadpool costume for cancer and all these things. I think Ryan Reynolds knew how to market Deadpool, that it works really well. We get a kick out of all these trailers that they get, and especially the thing that got me saying I got to see this was the current trailer that they brought out there, and it was just hysterical.
Yeah,
and the way he's running his own team.
Right, yeah, Ryan Reynolds has great comedic timing to start with, and his Deadpool is everything I think that both fans of Marvel Comics and average moviegoers could get behind this particular actor and this superhero.
Yes, it's dead on.
And it has to be. It's the perfect. It has to be nice. That was really nice. It has to be the perfect storm too, because the reality is that Ryan Reynolds is a great actor, but he didn't sell Green Lantern.
True.
And so I think it's got to be a good character. It's got to be a good story. It's got to be good marketing, and you got to have a good, likable personality in the role. And if you don't have all of those ingredients, it just fizzles. And so I think I'm looking forward to Deadpool too myself. I think it's going to be. I look forward to it because it's just, for me, with all the superhero stuff that's out there, that's comic relief. It gives us a break. It gives us as the geekdom permission to just laugh at ourselves, because so many of the gags are pointed at us. They're pointed at the geekdom. They're pointed at other movies, other properties, and it gives us a chance to laugh at ourselves. From Deadpool's perspective, which I think is awesome. So,
I do have one last thing that's going to actually go right into tonight's topic for you.
Okay.
It's called The Story of Science Fiction, and this is a new AMC series.
Oh, okay.
And James Cameron is actually going to sit down in 6 one-hour episodes and talk to science fiction greats. Sigourney Weaver's plan, Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott, George Lucas, Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's a whole bunch more. And that's going to be on AMC. It starts Monday, April 30th. And they're just going to talk about the story of science fiction and how it evolved, which is kind of what we're going to be doing tonight, is talking about a little bit of science fiction, a little bit of science fact.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very interesting thing.
No, that is great. And more we're seeing people acknowledge the contributions of science fiction in the scientific community, which does lead us right into our topic. Our guest tonight is from Dr. Geek's laboratory online. You guys can check him out more about all the things that are going on at drgeeklab.com. So we're hanging out with Scott Viguie. Scott, are you there, man?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hey, man. So great news for the sci-fi geekdom, as it were, out there. This age went over, and but that last piece, we're talking more. AMC's putting out a whole series now. We're going to talk more about the science fiction greats and their role in bringing about science fact. And this is something you talk about all the time.
Yeah, it's our raison d'etre, really. The idea of science from fiction is something that is at the very heart of our show. And for me, it's a way of saying, that everything that we're passionate about, we love Firefly, we love Star Trek, Star Wars. If that gets you interested in the real science behind those ideas, and maybe gets you to invent those things, then it's all a great thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there is so much to be excited about when you look back. 2 generations ago, it was a creative leap to take that passion for science fiction and turn it into science fact.
Yeah.
But now, today, from the cell phone to our current missions into space, you can actually see the influence that science fiction has had for 100 years. The influence that it has had on the science, on the actual science.
It definitely feels like the Geek have inherited the Earth, right?
Yeah.
But even as far back as the Apollo missions, they were reading from the Earth to the Moon on the way back. So it's for as long as there has been fiction, there has been that inspiration. And right. For me, it's H.G. Wells and Jules Verne. They anticipated things like the atomic submarine, space travel, going around the world in a short amount of time, all that type of stuff. That fax machines and all that sort of thing. And so what is fascinating about today is the gap between that initial concept and its realization is getting shorter and shorter.
And the distance between imagination and realization, not just time-wise, but just the overall distance is smaller and smaller.
Right, absolutely.
There was, when Jules Verne was writing, you could barely put a machine under the water at all, and he had,
right.
We could barely do that at all, and the ones that we had done had sunk. So, his Captain Nemo was at the helm of something that, at that period in time, simply couldn't exist. Today, by the time they write it, someone's trying to do it like the next day.
Or they've got a 3D printed model of it, mocked up already. Absolutely.
Yeah. And things that were one of the things that you find in science talk and science fiction is what fans have come to label technobabble. So it's always great when you see your favorite character on a Star Trek show just unleash on this fantastical technical monologue. And 45 years ago, half of that was literally being made up.
Yeah.
Today, you can Google half of what you hear a Vulcan say and find it.
Yeah, what's great, if you remember Stargate SG1, a lot of what Dr. Carter, Sam Carter, had to do, all those paragraphs of technobabble, they had real scientists be on the show as a consultant to get it right, so that the actors didn't need to know absolutely everything, but needed to know enough to feel that they were convincing themselves. And that kind of commitment to that positive portrayal is one of the reasons why things like Stargate SG1 or Star Trek are such a powerful recruiting tool to the sciences. Who hasn't had heard the stories about the Star Trek fan who went into medicine or engineering or the sciences because of Star Trek, right? That's the thing that I think is always exciting, as to what gets you motivated, what gets you involved.
And drives that science forward as a result of getting those young people hooked through their fiction into science. Guys, as we said, we're at about halfway through, so we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more about science, technology, science fiction, how these things intermarry, intermingle, and inspire us all. Remember, guys, stay tuned in, stay logged on. See who we're hanging with next.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Greetings, true believers. This is absolutely, positively not Stan Lee, reminding you that you are listening to Krypton Radio. Krypton? That's the other guys. It's SyFy for your Wi-Fi. Excelsior!
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Hangin' With Web Show Radio Hour. I'm GW Pomichter.
And I'm Christian Basel. Welcome back.
All right, and on the line is Dr. Viguie, Dr. Geek, rather. And we're talking about the impact of science fiction on science. And nowadays, to do good science fiction, there's an impact of science, we were just talking about this, on science fiction. So we were talking about back in the SG1 days, and the scientists that came on to consult to make sure that science fiction characters were on task, that were on track. And even
What I was going to say is that what's interesting, I think this differentiates science fiction from fantasy, and I've seen these in interviews with people who've grew up watching Doctor Who and Star Trek, is that they have an image of how they can improve the future better. That they're getting one step closer to a tricorder, a sonic screwdriver, a phaser, or these items that we are slowly getting. We're getting to items like our cell phones, which I think kind of is going into that direction. We're still, short a flying skateboard and the flying car in the Back to the Future world, but it's the achievement that people are influenced and getting to those stages, and I think that's what puts sci-fi out of the fantasy realm, is that people can relate and believe it more than having a magical wand and bringing something up.
Oh yeah, Christian is right on target with that. I think to add to that, I would say that the message of science fiction is that the mysteries of the universe are knowable, that you can learn them, that you can figure out how it works. And, everybody has their own magic wand. I mean, the sonic screwdriver has become that to a certain degree. But I think that the idea that separates science fiction from fantasy are the rules of which it runs by. And, sometimes you sit down and you try to be consistent with that, and you end up something like with the Zat Nicotel, where they okay, shoot once, it stuns, shoot a second time, it kills, shoot 3 times, it disintegrates, but how much time do you have to have between shot 2 and shot 3, right? And then you end up getting stuck on that. Well, and then on Dr. Geek's Laboratory, we're a full cast audio drama where we actually tell stories and also have interviews with real scientists and entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And we try to tell a continuing storyline. So in the guise of all that, we do all sorts of things. I mean, I've written myself paragraphs of technobabble, and I wonder why am I so mad at myself? How did I do this to me? But you have to be true to the genre, and it's kind of cool. And trying to come up with a way that it all makes sense. I think that's what's so encouraging about science fiction.
I think that's one of the things that happens today. Even as Christian pointed out, there used to be. I really do believe this. Even going back to my own childhood, the distinctions between, say, a Star Wars or Star Trek was the difference between science fiction and fantasy writing. And there used to be a huge gap between those things. But this amazing world we live in, as you said earlier, where geeks have inherited the world, we're closing the gaps on all of those things. Because it's not whether or not you have a magic wand that counts. It's whether or not you can imagine and visualize and make the science behind that magic wand real.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what used to be considered fantastical 30, 40 years ago is almost commonplace. I mean, things like the artificial heart, I mean, that was pure science fiction for a long time, and now that's not. The idea of nanobot surgery is in its infancy, but it does exist. Yep. So that gap between what is fantasy and what is science, I mean, we're starting to really personify Clark's laws when it comes to things like that.
And as we bridge that gap, one of the amazing things that happened is we find out that magic and fantasy wasn't magical. The magic was science we didn't understand.
Yeah, that's actually something that you mentioned, Dr. Geek, about the Third Doctor saying that what you can when the third Doctor was explaining to Joe Grant, he goes, "It's not magic; it's just science you haven't discovered yet."
Yeah, I mean, Arthur C.
There is an explanation, but it's not just a wave of Harry Potter going, saying his line.
The thing, and I think this is what Arthur C. Clarke told us when he gave us that wonderful quote. He was telling us that Harry Potter waving his magical wand is great to look at, but it's not magic. It's simply science that we don't get.
Right. It's advanced. Science advanced enough to appear as magic.
Yes.
And that's kind of where we're at. We're at that point where if you can imagine it, you can do it. And if you can't, it's not, at least you've identified what you need to tackle next.
Exactly. And that's where science fiction to science comes in, because a lot of times science fiction and even modern fantasy is what drives us to that next thing, because it always forces an audience member, that one kid that may be the director of NASA someday, that one kid walks out of the theater and says, I wonder if I could do that.
Yeah, the funny thing about it, Christian touched on it briefly when he was mentioning the tricorder and the communicator. Obviously, the person at Motorola who invented the first flip phone said that he was inspired by the Star Trek communicator. Yep. And we know that the people that put together and created the first hard 3.5 floppies, there's a reason why they were that shape and those colors, those bright primary colors.
Yep.
It's because they were literally inspired by the data discs that Spock used on the original Star Trek show. Mm-hmm. I mean, they picked red and blue and yellow and all that stuff. So there's that, but then it's funny. It's like when you talk about a tricorder or you talk about the original communicator, no one anticipated in the 1950s and 60s that our phones would merge to the point where they're basically the portal of all human knowledge in your pocket, that our communicator became our tricorder, really.
Yeah, that's just we took that to the whole next level, where you have your communicator, your tricorder, and your library, as it were, your data library, all in one little device on your smartphone. Speaking of smartphones, I have my smartphone open right now. Interesting piece of technology. Again, the bridging the gap between those fantasy elements and the new ones, currently being worked on by our military. The invisibility cloak. Mm-hmm, literally bending light around an object and camouflaging troops in the field.
And also, they've been working on different versions of like the rail gun or the laser gun and stuff like that as well. Yeah. And, when it comes to invisibility, what's so interesting is that it's not a matter of if we can do it; it's a matter of how adaptable is it. Because you can approach invisibility from several different ways. You could try to do it like they did in the James Bond movie, where they use the cameras and show you the opposite side and all that sort of stuff. But if that's truly how that worked, there's no way that car should be functioning the way it did. Yep. When Bond was standing next to it, there should have been a big distorted image of him being projected on the other side. But it's okay. We'll just let that go, but it's not. Can we bend the light in a way that it doesn't reflect back and appear invisible? Sure. We can also create metamaterials that are fine-tuned exactly to the room, so you know that if this object does not move, does not get interacted with by anything else, and you can make it completely disappear. But that's not what we want. We want Harry Potter's cloak, right? We want to be able to wrap yourself in it and walk.
That's right. We want it to be versatile. We want to be able to move around. We want to be able to use it for materials for big devices, small devices, and of course, people. Right,
you want Bilbo's magic ring, and you want to be able to put it on and have fun pranking your friends at your birthday party.
Running late for work.
Yes, exactly. But so it's interesting. It's like, okay, so the basic concept is something that can be done, and then the question becomes, how do you make it now adaptable?
Yeah, well, and that's it. And every time we do something new, it's very much like you alluded to earlier with cell phones. Those first flip phones, which were inspired by communicators, but they were, obviously huge in comparison. And today, not only is my regular iPhone is smaller than my flip phone was, it's also more versatile. It does more in that same amount of space.
Remember when they were phones?
Yeah,
Dr. Geek, I got a question for you. What device or item are you most impressed with that started off as sci-fi and ended up coming to its fruition in reality?
Oh, that's a good question.
I got a ton of them.
I think what I've most impressed by is the concept. I guess we wouldn't have called it the internet in sci-fi. It would have been like a library computer on Star Trek or something along those lines. But the concept of the internet and the virtual cloud is something that I'm very, very impressed by. You know, when I was a kid, 2001: A Space Odyssey had that really cool moment where the guy calls back from his journey to the moon and talks to his daughter on the video phone.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was supposed to be like this really, futuristic thing. And now I can do that on my phone. I can do it on my laptop. I can, and stuff like that. And I can do it off of the smart television.
And how Krypton Radio, we're doing it right now.
Yes. And the fact that all that has moved into the cloud so that it's not contingent on necessarily one box sitting on my desk anymore, and that it's all become cloud-based computing. That is definitely it's a series of science fiction inventions, but it's all kind of rolled into one. But it's the one thing I can say, wow, okay, I don't have a communicator like Kirk had. He always had perfect reception except for when the plot required not to.
Right.
But he could talk to a starship orbiting the planet and no problem, right? There are still times where I pull out my phone and I can't talk to my wife because she's in a dead zone in our house. So we're not quite there yet. But the idea that I can look something up instantly, I mean, that's something that I think as an adult I've become addicted to. If someone asks me something, if I don't know the answer, I quickly whip out my phone, I go on the web, I try to track it down, try to source it from more than one or two different sites, and then I know that I've got the answer. And that is something that is totally the future.
It is. Christian, how about you? What of all of the tech that's out there that you see, what are you most impressed with what's come?
Besides the ShamWow?
Besides the ShamWow, yeah. No one will ever beat that.
Nobody beat that.
Nobody beat that.
Or that guy with the steering wheel cover that you could use as a hat. I mean, one of those things. Those lasted for about a month. I can't really tell. I think I don't want to take a cop out, but I mean I'm fascinated that I like to say that some of the stuff that we got from NASA, like Velcro and all those items that we take for granted now in our daily lives, I really have. I hate to say this, I'm having a hard time answering that question. But one of the things, I think I'm going off to the side a little bit over here. I like that we're going back into space. And
obviously we live on the Space Coast over here.
Right, and
we're
I like the fact that I'm seeing when we had the space shuttles, and unfortunately we lost two of them for accidents, and they took them offline because they said, "Well, we're done with this." But to go on live and watching the news and seeing one of the rockets land on a barge perfectly, that's totally out of science fiction. It's just like, my God, I mean, those are the things that we were looking at. I remember in like Disney films and Disney cartoons that was going to be the wave of the future, and I'm watching it live on TV happen in the middle of the ocean.
Well, that's a perfect example right there.
Yeah. And what really gets me is I love the technologies that have emerged in medicine. We tonight, and it was driven home tonight, we were in the ER with Dina, who is fine. Everybody on Krypton Radio, Dina is wonderful. But we were in there and just seeing the day-to-day technologies. They were going to X-ray her, and I haven't been to a hospital in a long time, so I was expecting we're going to reel us down to X-ray. And they rolled in this fairly micro machine compared to what I was thinking of, and they did it right in her little stall. And they just went right around her. Boom, X-ray done. And they portable. It was so portable. It was more portable than your dentist X-ray machine, and it was right there in her little cubicle where she was being treated. And then I look out and I go, wow, what else is in this industry that is what would be considered miraculous a couple decades ago? We have prosthetic limbs that have disqualified their users from the Olympic Games because they would have an unfair advantage.
Yeah, well, the story of bionics is actually, life imitating art, art imitating life. If you think about it, when the first novel came out, Cyborg, and then they used the term bionics, that was actually referenced the work of a Air Force colonel who was the leader of the development of that. And then because of the popularity of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman series, the popular concept of what bionics was took on this kind of science fiction extended vision of it. But because of that drove the further development to make it, better integration into the skeleton structure, more passable to pass as human skin, more ability, want to be able to feel the heat, be able to feel the, adjust touch, be able to do fine motor skills and all that sort of thing.
Well, in that same vein, we're developing all of these fantastic things that can do what would have been fantastical things for artificial limbs or pieces and parts. At the same exact time, the cost of what it used to be incredibly price prohibitive just to get the proverbial hook hand was prohibitive. Today, all over the world, and we just saw an article about a guy in Australia that's doing this, but I know it's happening in Europe, it's happening right here in the U.S. Today, on a low-cost budget, there are people 3D printing prosthetic limbs for children.
Yes. In fact, one of the first that was very, very public, went viral, was people in Florida. There was a hospital in Florida that actually helped facilitate the 3D printing of a prosthetic arm for a child, and they did it in the form of Iron Man's armor. And they actually got the actor playing Tony Stark to, show up as Tony Stark and present it to the kid and the whole thing. And what's great about the way that came about is that when it comes to prosthetics for children and also 3D printed shoes for the third world and so forth, a lot of people who are doing that are doing it open source. They're not trying to grab the market for it. They're not trying to control it financially. They're really trying to say, here, let's make this technology available for everybody. And especially when you think about prosthetics for children, anyone who has kids knows that, the shoes you bought them are only going to last a couple of months, at best, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine that happening to a kid's arm or other parts of their body. They need those replacements just as regularly. And if you have to go the traditional route, you may force them to use an arm or a leg or such that is really geared for someone who is 6 months to a year younger. Or more, and that could cause all sorts of other problems.
And I remember, Dr. Geek, you had it. Oh, sorry.
They're able to do this at a lower cost than ever before. So again, it's not $50,000 every 2 years when they outgrow it. It's lower cost. It's more accessible. As you said, which brings us actually to the next great piece of tech. The 3D printer is the beginning of a...
Well, hang on a second, because I do want to go back to that issue, because one of the things that was coming up, and I remember in the episode, I don't remember the episode specifically, Dr. Geek, but it was the morality issue is that, okay, alrighty, I'm a basketball player and I have all my my regular stuff. Now the guy who is had to get both of his arms replaced got bionics, and he's 10 times better than I am now.
Right.
Or will this be this? And I'm taking exaggeration, but where does the line stop? Where is there a black market for somebody like Shaquille O'Neal? Well, he's in his 70s now, but if he puts on these bionics he got from Mortal Kombat, then he can go out there and he can dribble like the rest of them. Where does the line stop?
Well,
when does a moral issue come in?
Well, yeah, and the great thing is that, and I read an article last year about an athlete who wanted more than the proverbial Special Olympics, and he had prosthetic legs. But the moral issue that came into play was that he actually legitimately had too big a technological advantage to participate in the regular Olympics because his prosthetics literally made him faster than a runner. So we are dealing with the idea of as we merge with our technology, what what advantages, disadvantages in athletics is a great place to look at that. They're also, amazingly enough, making things out of metal and plastic and composite materials isn't enough for us. So in Europe, they're working on printing 3D printing organic technology.
Yeah, bioprinting.
That's right. And this literally, you're talking about being able to replicate. Right now, they're working on simple organisms like cells and skin, but they're talking about being able to replicate entire organs.
Right. And what's so funny about that is that there was a TED Talk about this a couple of years back, and you know how things get reported. Some people just look at the headlines and so forth and don't exactly watch the whole thing and stuff like that. So it got reported around the world that they had a functional 3D printed kidney, and the answer was actually no, we don't, but we're close. And and it's still groundbreaking news, but it wasn't as simple as we've already achieved it. And so the complexity of the kidney, it has so many different components.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the capillaries. It's the resolution that you can print at that is the issue. And so to work around that, they create like a lattice. And then so at some point you print to a certain level, and then you have to make it biologically viable so that it will grow and fill in the rest of the gaps.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of this combination of a organ bank and 3D printing. And when we did our series of shows about rapid prototyping in the 3D printer, we talked to a lot of different companies about it. And when the subject matter of bioprinting came up, it was something that they said, okay, unfortunately we've just hit an NDA, but what we can tell you is that it is something that is very, very particular. In order to have the clean room specifications to even attempt it is something that is what's going to keep this from the market faster than the actual technology itself. Because it's not as simple as going and getting a MakerBot 1 and putting it in my garage on my workbench, and now I have the ability.
We won't be printing our new heart in our basement anytime soon.
No,
which is probably for the best.
Right, but it was funny. It was that right around the time that TED Talk was happening, and people were hearing about the bioprinted beef coming out of Russia and so forth. There was the Eureka TV show, which I loved, and their last season was all about clones that they were able to bioprint in like 10 minutes, right? And it literally looked like a gigantic old style copier that they just scanned once, and next thing you know, they got a duplicate. And it was very, very funny, but we definitely hit that event horizon, if I could use a Krypton Radio phrase, an event horizon of what they anticipated what that technology will look like. The writers on that show, they knew bioprinting was coming, they know cloning is coming, but they really just didn't have a way to really tell the art department, make it more believable, make it look like this, because nobody really knows. So it was just funny that all that kind of happened all at once.
Yeah, well, it is. It's amazing to see what the science is capable of doing if given the right circumstances. And that the ultimate invention throughout science fiction is an invention that is often secondary to most things that you see, but it is the invention that makes the future possible in the Roddenberry universe, and that is the notion of the proverbial replicator. Organizing matter into different matter.
I would say that it's the replicator and the warp core. If you can have unlimited energy and then the ability to use that unlimited energy any way you want, you're set. Yeah, and ever since Star Trek 4, where they introduced recrystallized dilithium, you don't even have to worry about getting your dilithium crystals anymore. Yeah. You're all set. I mean, they literally took it's perpetual energy and whatnot. So yeah, if you can do that, you're golden. So what I tell people is, you need to figure out how to do 0-point energy, and then once you do that, you've got to get your bioprinter to work, and we'll solve all problems.
Well, you will, because I think therein lies the trick question. It's what makes Roddenberry's universe function, is the idea that when you can make anything from nothing or from seeming nothing, you have rewritten your economy.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like I was just talking about this the other day, and it became clear that Roddenberry himself wasn't worried about how the Federation internally functioned. When he was running those stories, when they were doing Star Trek and Star Trek: The Next Generation before he passed, the concept was, I don't care, just, the premise is, we made it, we achieved this, so accept that and we move forward. It was when, after he died and they had other showrunners and they said, well, yeah, but we keep running into these problems. How do we interact with the world? How did we get here? You're looking too much behind the curtain. And then at that point they, created the Ferengi and Gold Press Latinum, and they created an economy for everyone outside of the Federation because that's what made sense to everybody else.
Because the idea, wrapping your head, and again, I go back to those simple inventions, the idea of the warp core giving us this amount of energy, the idea of a replicator that can reorganize matter and produce everything from clothing to food to what we need. The one invention in Roddenberry's universe solved a planet's worth of problems,
right?
And then spread into the galaxy. So later on, we couldn't get our minds around this, I think, and so the guys in the, like you said, the showrunners in the background had to go, well, we have to introduce these dramatic elements that don't exist because we don't need money and because we don't need a pursuit of energy and all of these things that are modern problems. How do we talk about those things in a Roddenberry universe? And their answer was to introduce a bunch of races that hadn't got there yet.
Right. I mean, one of the first rules of good storytelling is how do you control and manipulate drama, right? But if your mandate is people of the Federation are the best humanity has to offer, and we've grown past all of our problems, then, the thing they kept hitting their head against a brick wall was that there wasn't going to be conflict amongst the crew. Any sort of conflict had to be, veiled in, we're learning more about you, you're learning more about us, that kind of a thing. But any true disagreement, I mean, something like the Maquis would never happen if Roddenberry had any real say about it. Stuff like that you could not do. So,
there's no motivation for it. At the core,
it made no sense, right? At
the core of a human being, we're motivated by a handful of very animal instincts.
Yeah.
When we've accumulated or come to a point where those basest necessities are taken care of, everything else becomes superficial. And so, how does a rebellion culminate in, like you said, the Maquis? How does this rebellion foment in a world where there's nothing to motivate them to?
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why Star Trek is so beloved, and why I know that the message that we will make it, that humanity will figure it out, and that we will be able to explore the universe, and it'll be a good thing, is something that I know a lot of people strive for.
It is.
And
it's an ideal. And
yes,
I think human beings, by definition, every fictional tale, and we deal, and on our show we talk about art and how it affects life and how life affects art. And one of the primary ingredients in anything is a human drive, whether it's a hero's journey or a messianic journey or a Star Trek future. Driving humanity to be their better selves is always the core message. Yeah,
and when we started Dr. Geek's Laboratory, when I started it in 2002, 2003, I was talking to my friends who would eventually become part of the cast, and we were taking a good hard look at what was available at the time, and the retool of Battlestar Galactica was very, very popular. Firefly was had come and gone, but it was still very much in people's minds. And if you looked at it, a dystopian future of some sort was what was kind of the constant message, and Star Trek had been off the air for a while, and so that's why Dr. Geek's Laboratory has that kind of more of a can-do, kind of a late 50s, rocket age kind of like we can do it attitude, and I think
we need that. We need to strive to be our better selves. And even in these dystopian type futures, we always center on a character that is struggling to become their better self.
Yes.
To become the next thing great. We're counting down, guys. We got about 4 minutes left. Christian, what do you think, man? Science, technology, science fiction. Where are we going?
Oh, wow. I just remember hearing the story, and this is what the scary part about going into so much science and technology. And I just remember somebody telling me that there's a story out there where we rely too much on technology to the point. And I remember somebody saying that there is a story about a bunch of terrorists who took a bomb, but the bomb didn't blow up anything. It made everything that ran on technology stop. It stopped the cars, it stopped the cell phones, the batteries wouldn't work. So anything that ran electric it just stopped it. So are we erasing?
I don't know who the writer that you were alluding to is, but I know a writer that wrote a story like that. Wait.
Yeah,
it's me.
It is you.
It is you.
Yesterday's Tomorrow, which is just about that, an EMP.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry about that. I got to read that book there.
No, it's true.
In any case, at what point does the human race say, you know what? What if we are in a position where we have to revert back to what we're given naturally, and we don't have the technology to do things? Because even now, as we speak right now, we had Mark Zuckerberg go up in front of the Congress because of the technology where all of our privacy had went out on the internet. So because we are so used to Facebook and all these technological advances that at some point, when does it become foe against friend?
Well, we've been being warned about this from the inception of modern technology. If you go back to Edison and Marconi and the great inventors of our transition into the industrial age, we've been warned. When will it come to pass that our technology surpasses our humanity?
Right.
Well, one of my doctorates is in archaeology, and I can tell you this right now. You don't want to know how many times we've lost the technology of the flush toilet. I joked with my wife that when Y2K came and went, that if it really was the end of the world, save the plumbers, because you don't want to have to reinvent that again. Yeah. And I think that's the only thing you can do about that is have a educated population, and that's why shows that have a STEM focused or STEAM focus, because art's very important, it is crucial to our future, because you don't want to have people who only know how to operate things. Yeah. You want them to understand how they work and why they work.
Well, and there it is. We're gonna throw that challenge out to all of our science fiction writers, everybody else. What if you were born on a generational spaceship and you knew how to fix the plumbing, but you didn't know how to build the ship? What would happen if it broke down? Could you fix it? There you go. If you know how to use your iPhone today, that's great, but we still need guys that know how to build them. We still need guys that know how to do the plumbing in the house, the electric in the house. We still need to keep our core, because that's what it's all about. We want to inspire you to invent and create the next generation of wonderful technology, tools, art, and always remember where we come from. We're human beings first. We need to eat, sleep. There are a bunch of other things that we need to do that I can't talk about on the radio. But that's where we are. We're human beings. Guys, we got to wrap it up. We want to thank you so much for coming on the air with us tonight. Krypton Radio, we want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us babble on about science, technology, science fiction, and how they relate to one another. We want to thank our partners and friends at Famous Faces and Funnies for helping us reach out to the World Wide Web and all of our listeners and viewers. We want to thank Off the Chain Radio with Yvonne Mason for helping us spread our message everywhere.
And don't forget our friends on... Yeah, there you go. There you go.
We want to thank you guys for picking us up and spreading the word about our fantastic creators here on the Hangin With Web Show. We've had a great time tonight, Christian. Any final words for everybody out there?
No, guys, we'll see you at the conventions out there. Just keep track of us. Again, we want to welcome our new friends on iHeartRadio. And again, as we expressed in the beginning of this, we can't do this without you. We wouldn't do this without you. Otherwise, it's just me, Sage, Garrett, and Deanna just sitting at a bar just talking about what, just shooting the breeze.
Guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you, Scott. Viguie, for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us.
It was my pleasure.
We love a good talk, and we love to hang with you. So thank you so much, Scott, for coming on the air with us. Guys out there, remember, everybody, keep tuning in, keep logging on, and see who we're hanging with
next.